That X plus Y equals B, you do not need to know that. Maybe benefits is separate. Maybe benefits isn't in HR. That's a whole nother video, child. We ain't getting into that one. We're gonna guarantee that you get this money because you showed the hell up, right? Hey y'all, this is Tamika, the face behind Heyyy HR, and I am so excited that I'm finally getting to some highly requested videos from you guys, my YouTube audience. So here you go. I'm happy you asked the question. Here's your video. So if you guys want to know, how does HR and finance work together? Is there any finance in HR? Is HR and finance or payroll all the same things? Then definitely watch this video. So I'm going to just kind of break this down by the core duties that each does, right? Because I want to show you exactly how they're separate, but it'll help you if you understand how they work differently. So what HR does is HR focuses on the entire employee life cycle. That's from attracting an employee. That's if you may have to do like job postings, job fairs, branding of your company, getting some things to give away, whatever you need to do to attract people, right? Commercials, your website, whatever you may need to do to not just attract business, but to attract employees. So there's going to go from attraction to that full-on recruitment, right? I post that job, I go through sourcing, I go through getting applicants in, then we go through interviewing, we go through selection, and then we go through pre-screening, and then finally we go through offer, which leads us into onboarding, right? So all of that's kind of the same for every company. And when you talk about the employee life cycle, that's the way it begins. And then it continues on to onboarding, then you may do training, benefits orientation, and then you have a cluster of things that can happen at different times. It totally depends on the employee. And so when it picks up from that employee, it really can go to employee relations. It can go into deeper benefits like FMLA, short-term disability, long-term disability. It can go into workers' comp. It can go on employee engagement, any of those things in the middle. And then you end with the same thing. So for an employee life cycle, it begins the same, it ends the same, and it ends by separation. That separation can be resignation, it could be termination, it could be retirement, but it always ends with separating the employee from the company. So you're going to add them onto the company, have them as an employee, then they're going to separate. That happens all the time, right? That's the way it goes for every one of us. We start with a company, we end with a company. In between is a little bit different. So that's what HR is focused on. And then HR also focus on working with payroll on the parts of HR that affects payroll. Not everything affects payroll in HR. So HR and payroll are separate. When you have a much smaller company, see, I'm getting ahead of myself, child. I'm getting ahead of myself. But I'm going to just throw this out here and we'll go back and revisit it. When there's a super small company, you can see a HR and payroll or finance position together. Not typically finance, but it could be HR and payroll together. And I'll break down finance and payroll too. But those can be together for smaller companies. When you get the much larger companies, they're totally separate departments, different rules, different processes, different procedures, different points of contact. So the part where HR and payroll gets together is those parts that affect payroll. Payroll has a normal, same everyday pay run. Everybody gets paid the same. We get paid the same time. There's no changes. It can be an easy pay run until HR comes in and say, hey, I got to change. That change can be a new employee. That change can be a new benefit year. Maybe your benefit deductions change. People may change which benefits they want. And you also have your onboarding that can change. Maybe retirement start at a different time. Maybe any type of stocks benefits may start at different times. Maybe you may have different perks like getting a phone paid for, getting internet paid for, getting exercises paid for, things like that. HR is going to come in and say, hey, payroll, I need you to deduct this, or I need you to add this, right? And then termination obviously causes HR to say, hey, payroll, I got another change. This person's separating, they're leaving. Same thing with other benefits. So I talked about benefits enrollment, but workers' comp is going to cause a change in that benefit. Short-term disability is going to cause a change in payroll. Long-term disability is going to cause a change in payroll. So when there's a change, that's when HR tells payroll or HR does it themselves, right? You can either have an HRS that does it or you have somebody that knows HR and payroll and they make these changes. So that's where they work together. Do you need to know math? Simple math. That X plus Y equals B, you do not need to know that. But you do need to know that, like, okay, if this premium for this benefit costs this, This is how much I need to subtract from their overall paycheck. You also need to know, like if somebody's coming on board, okay, if their hourly payroll is this, we multiply that by 40. That gives me what they make in a week. If we pay bi-weekly, then I'm gonna multiply that by 2. And if we also pay bi-weekly, then I'm gonna multiply it by 26. So every year you have 26 pay runs if you're doing a bi-weekly payroll, right? If you're doing every 2 weeks for sure. Or if you're making sure they get paid twice a month or whatever. Now, there are some companies that each year there's a leap year, they finagle it, right? It goes from 26 to 27 or whatever. But that's gonna be your simple math as HR. Your other math is going to be the benefit companies that you use for your benefits, right? They're going to send you an invoice every month. It's HR's job. Payroll is normally your quality check 2, or maybe payroll is quality check 1 and HR's quality check 2. It's always great to have the 2 back this information up. But you're going to get this invoice every month. The plan is to look at, these are all of our employees that have this benefit. These are all of their deductions, and I want to make sure that it matches what we're taking out of their paycheck. And I want to make sure that at the end of the day, those totals are matching. So that's your biggest math too. I personally use an Excel sheet, and I'll download a report from maybe my HRS that shows everything that's going through payroll. And then I'll take the report that comes from the benefits and I'll put that on the next side, and I have one empty column in the middle, and I have one formula in that middle that says these numbers should equal. And if they don't, they stand out to me. I intentionally put everything else in black, and I put that single column in the middle in red, and I make it bold so that when I don't see a 0, I know somebody has something off. Now, I won't go into all the details to tell you how I fix that, because it does take different things, but I literally will move that because my plan is to make sure that my pay run and my benefits invoice are the exact same number. So I usually will remove those and make note of what I need to do. But when I make that note, that's the note I'm also sharing with payroll, because that's the change. That's what I need to make sure they know, unless it's accurate, right? Because sometimes we might be taking out a benefit, and maybe that benefit added on to a date that ended after the invoice was pulled. So obviously it's gonna be wrong. So you expect it to be wrong. And so automatically you'll say, I don't need to tell payroll about that because we did that right. I need to make sure that next pay run is showing the exact same number it should be showing. It shouldn't be showing this difference. That's the only thing. That's all, totally up to your contracts and all that. So I won't get into those differences, but that's the hardest math that HR needs to do, right? You have some budget processes. So now we're going to get away from payroll and we're going to talk about finance. You do have some budget concerns that will be for HR that affects finance, right? So finance, you may have like overhead costs, right? Maybe you do some recruitment. You buy some giveaways that you want to give away. Maybe you also buy some decor for your table, some cute stuff for your table. Maybe you need to pay your employees for travel to get to this event. Maybe you need to pay a fee to attend this event. A lot of times we have to pay like a vendor fee for a vendor table or what have you. All those things comes from the company overhead costs. They're HR overhead costs, but the company gives HR that money. So now you need to tell finance like, hey, we've done this. A lot of times, those are the 2 biggest things I used to get money for, but I also would get money for, let's say if I add an employee on my team, we get a phone reimbursement. Back in the day at that old company, at the couple old companies, HR would get like a perk of they'll pay a portion of our phone bill or our entire phone bill. So then I have to get that over to finance. Another thing is, let's say I wanted to, do a lunch and learn. So if I wanted to do a lunch and learn and I wanted to, a lot of companies these days become like brown bag lunches and you bring your lunch. But if you work in a company I work for, I'm not really going to do a lunch and learn if I can't give you something. And so for years, I would always make sure that the company either paid for the lunch or that one of our benefit brokers or our benefit account managers paid for it, because they're getting a benefit out of this. They get paid. So, and the benefit is that I'm educating you on benefits, right? So if I'm educating you on health insurance, there's a reason why the health insurance company should pay for it, because me educating you should allow you to cost the insurance company less money. Same thing with like 401k. Me educating you on 401k should in turn make you contribute more, and a higher number of contributors they have, they should be happy. So I've had 401k folks pay for lunch and learns. But if I don't get someone else to pay for a lunch and learn and our company pays for it, then okay, that's something else I need to tell finance because it's coming out of my budget. Those are HR expenses. So HR expenses, overhead costs, I would definitely tell finance. Anything related to payroll, and an employee, I'm going to tell payroll. So it's going to be important for you to talk about this budget because it does affect the company's overhead costs and it helps for forecasting for HR. Another area where you may need finance versus payroll is if you're forecasting headcount. You know that you're going to have a lot of work coming in. Maybe every year, you hire summer interns, or maybe you decided that we're going to do a whole company reorg and we're going to focus in on this, and this is going to cause us to need more employees, or we might need to add some per diem employees, some part-time employees, whatever. Now I'm forecasting headcount. I'll go to finance to say, I'm forecasting we're going to need another body. And this body is going to cost roughly this because this position is valued at this amount. And this position not only is valued at this amount, but we're matching market salaries, and I need to give benefits. Maybe I need to give benefits. So I'm going to go ahead and tell finance about that. So that's all HR, right? We're not getting deep in this thing. Y'all want to know the difference? That's where we going. We getting deep because that's a really good question. I don't want y'all to get HR and finance confused because they're separate. They're two different things. They're two different things. Even if you have one person that's doing HR and finance, they're doing a mental pivot or re-gearing their minds to adjust for each because it's different. So some of the things that payroll does. Now we're going to leave from HR. We're going to move on over to payroll, right? So if we look at what payroll does, payroll processes the pay runs. The pay runs just mean every 2 weeks, a few days before payday, we're going to go through, put it into the system, gush it out to everybody's paycheck, right? Or everybody's bank account. They're also going to do those adjustments for deductions, mainly benefit deductions. Mainly if somebody gets a promotion, if somebody gets some type of compensation adjustment. Maybe they were a regular employee, now they're a sales employee. Now we need to give them commission. Anything like that, right? Maybe somebody's terminating. Maybe somebody's going to be on leave. Whatever it is, I need to make sure that as a payroll person, I'm adjusting the pay run for that particular person. So pay runs are literally the same. They usually have no difference until HR comes in and tells them they have a difference. So it's simple. That's payroll. That's payroll. I wish I had felt comfortable doing payroll because, child, that's it. It's easy. As long as employees stay the same, you just got to run a pay run. All right. I mean, the biggest other things I think that I've heard them have as issues over the years is like holidays or leap years or mainly those things, system issues, something like that. But now let's talk about finance. So we already talked about HR. We already talked about payroll. Now we're going to talk about finance because finance is your overarching department. And within finance, you can have payroll. Typically, that's how it goes. You'll have a finance department that handles finance for every department. Maybe it handles forecasting for the whole organization. Maybe it also handles payroll. Maybe benefits is separate. Maybe benefits isn't in HR. That's a whole nother video, child. We ain't getting into that one. But benefits can potentially be a part of the finance department and not a part of HR. But typically it's a part of HR. Finance handles all of those things that involve money for the company. And so finance is going to give HR an annual budget. That's how we know how much we can spend. When we need to buy different things for employees, maybe we're doing a lunch and learn, maybe we're doing an employee appreciation day, maybe we're doing a nice benefits fair, maybe whatever we may be doing for an employee, maybe we're doing admin recognition day. So if we're doing something that involves paying money, now we get that from our budget. Our budget comes from finance. And then we also have finance that tells us how much money we have available for FTEs. Your FTEs is your full-time employee. They can also tell you about your budget for your part-time employees. They can also tell you about your budget for your per diems. They can also tell you about your budget for contractors. HR normally has a small part to do with contractors. Contractors are not employees. We try to make sure that they don't look like a duck, quack like a duck, so that the federal government doesn't get upset and say that's an employee because they look like a duck, they quack like a duck. So we try to keep contractors differently, but there's some things that it just makes sense that HR does for contractors. But at the end of the day, you go to finance to see how many of these headcounts, that's what we call them, headcounts, right? So you can call them FTEs. A lot of people like saying, how many FTEs do I have? I think they think that makes them sound amazing, but it's literally just headcount. How many people can I have in this department to make it run well? Because finance plan is to not only predict this based on the workload, but to predict us based on the company's finances. What can the company afford? What do we project the company will make from doing these changes that's going to be able to pay for these employees, right? Another thing that finance can do is primarily with sales employees, they manage the commission payouts. So that it sounds weird, right? Because you're like, but Tamika, you said all money going to employees come through pay runs. Well, commission isn't from pay. Typically employees get most times, not every industry, but most times your employees get a base pay, right?
We're going to guarantee that you get this money because you showed the hell up, right?
And then we're going to incentivize you with additional money if you hit goals. So that's where commission comes in. I'm incentivizing you. I'm telling you, if you can say you're going to sell, $1.2 million this quarter, then I'm going to tell you that this is how much money I'm giving you on top of your base pay to make sure you're good. And so a lot of times finance will project that, because finance not only looks at, how much this employee has made in commissions, but it also looks at, did we make a price change for our products and services? Are we using more marketing to make sure we reach higher people? They're really forecasting how successful an employee can reach their commission. Are we giving a commission that's too high, one that's not attainable? Do they have too many uncontrollables? So anyhow, your finance department handles that. So that's a whole lot going on. If y'all need to, feel free to pause this video, go back and watch it again, and write some notes. Put a column for HR, a column for payroll, a column for finance, and look at it. It tells you there's different. So your HR is going to manage your people, and they're going to tell payroll when there's a change in a paycheck. Payroll is going to do that pay run and make sure that those changes in the pay run reflects for the employee. Finance is going to make sure that HR is spending their money right, and that payroll is really paying this money, and that we have this money available to pay. So that's pretty much what it is. Good umbrella, right? So finance and payroll sometimes, like I said at the beginning of this video, can really be the same department. I won't say until I came to work in a global company that it was separate, because it's been separate in smaller companies too. Because I've worked for like small companies where they have like 50 full-time employees and maybe like 20 or 30 part-time employees, but their gross or their revenue is super high. Maybe they make 18 million a year. Maybe they make 30 million a year. Maybe they are hitting on the billions and they're doing this off of like 40 employees. Totally can happen. And in that space, that money is so high, obviously majority of it is not for employees. And so you have a finance person that manages that, and you have payroll that reports into finance or explains the finance, or they work together really well. So typically in smaller companies, it does depend, like you'll see finance and payroll together. But keep in mind that like the biggest thing is that not necessarily just the size of a company, but also the industry. So that's a big thing when I tell you guys, like when you're looking for a job, when you're trying to grow your career, it's important to not only look at the number of employees, but also look at the industry. And then you want to look at that company makeup. Are they all in one office? Are they all located in one city? Everybody seeing everybody every day? Or do you have 50 employees that spread across 40 different states? Or do you have 50 employees where you have them in like 4 different countries and then the US? And then maybe they might all be in one office. Totally different, right? So in that space, you can have finance and HR and payroll, all different. So I would definitely tell you that for the most part, you're always going to see that payroll reports into finance. They talk far more often than HR and them. It's just a thing. I hope that you guys found this video helpful. If this is your first time watching a Heyyy HR video, then as you can see, not only do we take HR from just starting your career to growing your career, because this is a higher level question that I'm answering, but also if you leave it in the comments and tell me what video you want me to create, I don't have a problem in creating it. And if somebody already put the topic to their video in the comments, because sometimes if I get too many requests, I look at how many likes they have. If they have likes, then that means a lot of people had needed me to do it, right? So if y'all see your question already there, please hit the like button on that comment, so I'll know, okay, I need to prioritize this question. Because a lot of times I already have videos like created or planned for months. So I try to squeeze your requests in, which isn't a big deal. I want to do what works for you guys and what you're looking for. So if this is your first time watching a Heyyy HR video, I hope that you found it helpful. And I hope that you decide to subscribe, because honestly, that tells me that I'm doing the right thing. That tells YouTube that I'm doing the right thing. And it makes me kind of get the energy to keep going, because here I am sitting down recording a video. Nobody said I really felt like it, but I'm doing it, right? Sometimes I got to get myself geared up, right? And for those of you who are returning, I haven't heard from y'all in a while. Now, y'all do show up on my lives. I appreciate that. But please Let me know in the comments if there's anything that I missed for you guys. Even if it's a service, it's good to know what service you guys are looking for. Are you looking for mentoring? Do you want more interview calls? Do you want more negotiation calls? Like, holla at your girl. Now, I'm not doing them 15-minute calls where y'all sit on there and tell me y'all only got 15 minutes of questions and we only for an hour because we're doing career mentoring. That's not what we're doing. But definitely let me know if there's a service or a video that you guys are interested in, because I really want to make sure that you guys are satisfied. At the end of the day, y'all already know. I can't wait to see you on the next video.